I'll be honest, it's been a tough 2 weeks, and not because I've had diarrhoea, lost a leg, or been lured into the back of a van by the Pied Piper. No, it's because I've been withdrawing from the world. And I haven't been doing any of the things that once upon a time brought me joy, which has made me feel... But that was until a few days ago, when I read a superb article by the psychologist at the University of London, Lucy Foulkes, in which she explained everything I needed to know about how to engage with life, even when you just want to sit in your bed and scroll memes all day. But while I was reading that article, I thought about you. And I thought about the rut you might be in at the moment. And I thought, what would we have to explore together in order for you to get back on track in life and to reclaim that sense of positive forward momentum? So here we are. We're going to do it. Got a few minutes? Yeah? Sure? Alright, cool. What we're going to cover in this short video, don't know how short it will be, it's going to be unedited. We're going to cover exactly why we get ourselves into these spirals of low mood and why we withdraw from the world, even though that seems counterintuitive. And then we're going to cover the 6 things we need to do straight away, as Lucy highlights, in order to get back on track in life. But first of all, let's get straight into it. Now, 2 words we're going to be using interchangeably throughout this video is depression and low mood. But first of all, let's get clear on what we mean by depression, because essentially that's how you feel. You feel depressed when you're in a state of low mood or you're in a rut. How can we characterize depression? Depression is largely characterized by 2 things. Low mood, of course, and the big kicker, inactivity. Now, inactivity is the big kicker here, because the cycle that plays out, that contributes to you being in a low mood, is the low mood causes you to stop doing your usual things in life that once upon a time brought you joy and positive feelings. You stop doing them, which means you withdraw more from the world, meaning you have less energy, meaning motivation to do those things low, causing you to avoid doing them even further. Hi guys, me again, just jumping in to explain the neuroscience of what I was waffling on about in the last minute. Essentially what we know is when you interact with the environment, your brain cells change. But when the low feelies come, what do? You withdraw from the world, meaning, before we get into the meaning, please see corresponding memes on the screen. Meaning, you exercise less, you go outside less, and you socialise less. So the chances of your heart rate increasing and your brain producing dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and histamine, these things known as amines. I'm okay. Don't worry, I'm okay. It's fine. These things known as amines that your brain produces that are responsible for your feelings of drive, motivation, wanting, go-getting, focus, enjoyment of something in the moment where you realise, oh my god, this thing is amazing, let me do this again. The chances of them being increased along with your heart rate when you withdraw from the world is 0. Zilcho. Nada. Also, depressed people show decreased production of new brain cells, a process known as neurogenesis. Final time. Please see corresponding meme on the screen. So the cycle from a neuroscientific standpoint when you withdraw from activities in the world is you withdraw from the world, first of all, by huddling under the covers from other people and exercise, figuratively speaking or literally huddling under the covers because these activities have become too hard and intimidating to do, which leads to there being less stimulation going to your brain because you're not experiencing new things, leading to your old software of your brain becoming reinforced because more connections are being formed for that pathway, thus strengthening it, leading to your amine levels, or the neuromodulators we covered about 30 seconds ago. Their levels are low now because the old software is being continuously chosen. Finally, this leads to your ruminative and depressive pathways becoming reinforced, and the cycle repeats itself until we all throw up. Spoiler alert. We're going to reverse this whole cycle in the rest of the video so you can get back on track. Man, get back to the video. How do I end? Oh. Now, let's cover straight off the bat why we would get into point number 1 anyway. If we labelled all of these points, why would point number 1 happen? Why would you just suddenly stop doing things that initially brought you joy if you understand that those things are necessary for you to engage in order to feel those good feelings? Well, one reason that psychologists highlight is something called a big context shift. Essentially, a big context shift is when you once upon a time had a big source of structure in your life that has now changed. If we don't drop our pens. If you take the example of someone once upon a time in a relationship, and then that relationship ends, that person might naturally withdraw from the things that they used to do with their partner, such as all of the social things, because they used to do those things together. So they're in a state of withdrawal socially because their grief is motivating them to avoid doing those things so as to not spark the memory of all of the things that they have lost. Withdrawal. You can imagine another example of a student in a state of high stress because he's got a lot of exams coming up. How do I draw a laptop? Just imagine that's a laptop on a table. He's in a state of high stress. So he naturally withdraws from the hobbies that once alleviated his stress, contributing to his low mood. Big context shift, which is his attention is now reoriented to a new context in his future. Big context shift could be something that has changed in your past or something upcoming. The context shift that contributed to my low mood was I was in Mexico for 2.5 months and I had this plan of, I'm going to travel Latin America and everything. But then I decided to come home temporarily in order, why do I keep dropping my pen? In order to help my mum move house. So it's been a big context shift because I was in a place where I had a lot of structure and I had a big plan. I had this big story in my head. And then reacclimatizing back to the UK temporarily has been putting me out of sorts because I've been in a liminal space, in limbo, so to speak. That might explain the spark of being in a low mood, but you might not always find a reason for being in a low mood. Sometimes you're just in a low mood because you're in a low mood. Or there might be a reason, it's just a little bit harder to find. But what we need to highlight now is we need to get really specific on the risks of withdrawal, because so far we've just painted it as this bad thing, but we haven't explained why. The 2 reasons why withdrawal is bad is because, first of all, it provides you with an immediate relief from discomfort. Naturally so, you're a human being who wants to self-soothe, so you engage in the immediate relief of a bad habit, let's imagine. But then, of course, what we don't realise in that moment of impulse is that leads to further long-term problems. If we go back to the cycle, the more you go around in that loop of withdrawing from the normal activities that you would usually do, the less exposure you have to the positive benefits of doing those activities. The less you do them, the less motivation you have to do them, and the more intimidating they become. But while we're here, let's just quickly zoom out to consider the bigger picture and really nail why you would withdraw from life if you understand that it leads to longer term problems. Let's cover this. And in order to cover this, you have to understand the 2 reasons why you perform any behaviour. And the first reason is positive reinforcement. The second reason, can you guess what it is? Sorry, sometimes my collar gets a bit stuck, and that wasn't a flex, that was me just sorting my collar out. Negative reinforcement is the second reason why you would perform any behaviour. Now, to explain what positive reinforcement means, it's very simple. Let's do it in blue. Positive reinforcement. It's when you perform an action, and then after that action, you experience a positive reward. For example, the reason why you would continue to go to a cafe to get a coffee is because every time you drink that coffee, you get a positive, feel-good buzz. Perform action, feel good, repeat. The second reason why you would perform a behaviour is negative reinforcement. And what this means is you perform an action, and that action provides you with a sense of relief or avoidance from discomfort or pain. For example, when you have a headache, what do? You take a headache tablet because that provides you with a sense of avoidance from discomfort. Now, how does this relate to our context of today, talking about low mood and withdrawing from the world? Well, this relates because when you're in a state of low mood and depression, you have a lack of positive reinforcement, and you have an overdrive of negative reinforcement. Why do you have a lack of positive reinforcement? Well, of course, because all of the activities, let's draw him a bit sad, that once upon a time brought you joy and good feelings are unavailable to you, or they seem too intimidating for you to do. Why do you have an overdrive of negative reinforcement when you feel depressed? Well, it's because you're now focusing on those activities that provide you with a sense of immediate relief, be them bad habits or any form of withdrawing from the world. So, because the original activities that once provided you with positive emotion are now too hard to do, you're naturally going to seek relief from that intimidation and discomfort. So you withdraw into activities that provide you with that immediate relief. Just checking my notes. And what's the big danger here? Well, the more time you engage in the activity that provides you with a sense of relief, all your energy and time is going into this, so the less time you have for all of these activities that help you engage with the world and provide you with positive emotions and experiences. So what we would need to do in order to get you back on track and get you out of this state of withdrawal is we need to increase the amount of positive reinforcement you have. And we need to reduce the amount of negative reinforcement you have. Because withdrawing from the world and tasks when they are too hard to do becomes negatively reinforcing. No matter what habit you're engaging in at the moment that's providing you with that sense of relief, staying in bed all day, or scrolling on your phone, eating junk food, whatever it might be, you're in a state of negative reinforcement. Reclaiming that positive reinforcement, good news, is very simple to do. So let's get into this now. What do we need to do in order to increase this reinforcement, positive reinforcement? Well, we need to use a therapeutic approach, which up until researching this video, I hadn't heard of before, and it's called BA, Behavioral Activation. And this was developed in the 1960s by, what was his name? Peter Lewinson and his colleagues. And it's very similar to CBT, but slightly different in the sense that behavioral activation essentially encourages you to engage in the activities that you are avoiding so that you can increase the exposure you have to positive reinforcement. Because remember, the more you engage in activities that provide you with immediate relief, the less time and energy you have to engage in activities that provide you with positive reinforcement and that help you engage with the world. Let's cover this now. The 6 ways, as highlighted by Lucy. Now, the first way to engage this behavioural activation and get you back on track is, let's do them in green because they're going to be these steps. Monitor what you do each day. Let's get you back on track. Point number 1, monitor what you do each day. I'm going to put a free PDF link in the description and the pinned comment of this video. And I'm going to put it on screen now. And I'm going to quickly draw it on the board so I can see it as well while we're explaining it. I'm pretty sure it's, time throughout the day, 10 PM, let's say. Let me just draw it quickly. Day of week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What you first need to do is take stock of all of the activities that you are naturally falling into at the moment in your daily rhythms. And you do so by using this table, and over the space of the next day, 3 days, or the next week, if you want to gather as much information as possible, you simply, maybe once or twice a day, at midday or in the evening, you write down all of the activities that you did during that day. But most importantly, you rate those activities on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of how you felt while you was doing that activity. So you do it while you rank, and then you also rank them based on how you felt after that activity. So for example, if I take Monday and let's say I spent the morning scrolling on my phone. First thing, I'm not going to write that down with judgment. I'm simply going to observe what behaviour I did. Let's say I did that for 3 hours. Okay, how would I rank that? Well, while I was scrolling, I noticed I was at a 3. 1 being completely terrible, that's how you're feeling. 10 being very upbeat, positive, and at your best. While I was scrolling, I was at a 3. But I noticed that after I was scrolling, I noticed that I wasn't feeling too good and I needed a reset. So I went on a walk around the local park in nature, and that shot me up to a 5. Key insight. When I'm scrolling, I'm at about a 3. When I'm at a walk, I'm at baseline. And like we said, the key of this exercise is to simply become aware of the activities that make you feel better and that make you feel worse. Just before we move on, if doing this seems too intimidating for you, you don't have to do it. Just listen to the next few points with an open mind and absorb whatever is useful. So you do that over the course of a few days, 1 day, or a week. Collect the activities and notice how you feel. And then point number 2 is evaluate what you did. Don't put your pens in your pocket when you need to grab them readily. It's raining outside. It's very nice. That was a strange thing, a British man saying it's nice to see rain outside, wasn't it? Point number 2, evaluate what you did. Okay, the main thing I want to explain here is after you've collected some information on your daily schedule, you might then instinctually make the commitment of, do you know what, I'm going to try and do some of these activities that I used to do, whatever they might be. Going to the gym, working out again, speaking to friends, whatever form of engagement you once had with the world. But you probably won't feel too motivated to do them just yet. And you won't feel that spark to do them, especially if you've been in a low mood or a rut for a very long time. So, here is the key thing I want you to pay attention to. Let's say you make that commitment and you think, do you know what, I'm going to get back into the gym again, or I'm going to start working out again. But over the course of 3 days, you've noticed that while you was at the gym, you ranked it about a 3. And it was like, oh, I had this expectation that the gym would make me feel better, or going for a walk would make me feel better, but I just feel the same. I feel like I'm in a low mood. But 2 days later, you do the same activity, and your score goes up to a 4. Even though that seems insignificant, all I want you to pay attention to in your evaluations over the next few weeks or so that you're doing this exercise is if you jump up numbers, that is progress. And progress is what we want to pay attention to. Okay? Even if it goes up from a 2 to a 3, that is progress. Point number 3. Now you've collected some information over the activities that you've been doing and how they're making you feel before, or while and after you do them. Point number 3 is make a plan for the following week. Okay, so you've got your information. Perhaps you've collected enough over the course of a week. And you've got an understanding now of what activities make you feel better and what make you feel worse. Here, all I want you to do is pick 2 to 3 activities, and then within the next week, I want you to schedule these in intentionally. Okay? Key thing to note here, you don't just want to pay attention to activities that make you feel a sense of enjoyment. You also want to pay attention to activities that you feel are important and that provide you with a sense of meaning. How can you tell whether something provides you with a sense of meaning? I would say when you're doing something and you get that feeling that you're in the right place with the right people at the right time, you're in a state of withdrawal, so it might not be with the right people, but right place, right time, that is a sense of meaning. Additionally, you might want to categorize the activities that you implement into your new routine with these labels. So you've got the pleasurable, can't spell, been watching some videos on YouTube recently where this guy goes onto the streets of the UK and asks the general public extremely simple questions, and their answers are just atrocious. Like spell the word beginning or spell the word business. And I've realised that spelling is actually a very hard skill for a lot of people, and me sometimes. The pleasurable, that is a category of activity you might want to think about. The pleasurable, the routine, and the necessary. And note that all 3 of these activities are essential. You can't just over-optimize for the pleasurable. The pleasurable might be your hobbies or things that provide you with that sense of flow state. The routine, waking up, brushing your teeth, showering, cleaning the house, taking the trash out. The necessary, life admin, paying taxes, paying bills, making calls that you need to. And remember, with all of this, the purpose is we want to grab a hold of the wheel of your life and steer the direction of your life intentionally towards these activities that provide you that sense of importance, pleasure, and meaning. Anything else to note in this section? Yeah, 3 quick things. Also remember, the reason we're doing all of this is to get something positive out of life rather than staying in this state of withdrawal. And one thing I want you to pay attention to while you're making your plan for the following week is reflect back on the information that you've collected in your schedule. And I want you to pay attention to the activities that provided you with a sense of immediate relief. You might have noticed that you scrolled for 3 hours, which beforehand you was at a 5, but then after scrolling, you actually dropped down to a 2, naturally so. And then you might even introspect a bit further and realise, oh, do you know what? I had a plan to go to the gym that evening, but because I scrolled, my motivation was just absolutely zapped, which provides you with the realisation of to choose one thing equals to not choose another. Which can pretty much summarise the state of withdrawal you're in right now. Scrolling on your phone is going to result in you having less energy and motivation to go to the gym. Staying in bed all day in a very harsh way, tough love here, is going to result in you having less energy and desire to go out and socialise with people. Always remember that the etymology of the word decision comes from the Latin decidere, which means to cut. Whenever you make a decision to do something, you're always choosing to not do something, or cast the votes in favour or out of favour for you to have the energy to do or not to do something after you do this thing. Cool. 3 more points. Let's move on. Point number 4 is stick to the plan even when you don't want to. Okay, this is tough love as well. Now, to really help you with that last point of pick 2 to 3 activities that you want to schedule in for the next week based on the information you collected. When you schedule those activities in, stick to them and make sure that you do them. And some things that are going to help you do this is the approach I want you to take with perceiving the lack of motivation you have is I want you to start looking at things from the outside in rather than the inside out. The inside out approach to motivation, if we imagine this is a bowl of your motivation, is inside out. I don't feel ready to do this thing yet. I'm going to wait until I feel ready on the inside and then I'm going to face this activity. Outside in, however, that approach to motivation is I'm going to feel motivated as I do this thing, and I don't have to perceive my internal state of lack of motivation as a sign as to whether I should or shouldn't do this thing or not. Or I should or shouldn't do this thing, because I can understand as soon as I start doing this thing, the path will illuminate as I walk it, and I will get that activation energy from the task itself. How can you keep this realization close to you in a principle form? Always remember that mood follows action. You don't have to wait for your internal state to change before you do something. You can do something and then your internal state will change as you do that thing. Now, 3 more things that are going to help you stick to the plan of these activities you've scheduled in, especially when you feel you don't want to do them. The first point is break it down. As we've covered, a big contributing factor to being in a state of withdrawal is things become way too intimidating. If you can imagine the task that you want to do, whether it's go to the gym or speak to friends, go out and socialise, or clean your house, whatever it might be. Had a sweaty upper lip, and that's because I closed the window, that's why. I'm baking. There's a task you want to do. Here is the task in its totality. Go to the gym. Oof, I'm procrastinating on doing that at the moment because that seems way too intimidating for me to do. Okay, cool. Break it down to 50%. Break it down to 25%. Break it down to 5%. I want to do this thing. Go gym. That's the task in its totality. No. Work your way back to somewhere where your willingness to do this task begins. If you can't go to the gym right now because that's too intimidating, can you put your workout clothes on? Can you get your workout drink ready? Ask yourself, where does my willingness begin? If the task of calling a friend or going out and saying yes to a social invitation right now seems too intimidating, work back to 5%. Where does your willingness to do this task begin? If meeting someone face to face is too intimidating, can you send them a text message? Itchy nose. Can you send them a voice note? Can you think about what you want to say to them? Where does your willingness begin? Second point that's going to help you do something when you're in a state of intimidation is do the easy stuff first. If you're familiar with the self-improvement world, then you would have had the idea of eat the frog. Do the hardest thing first thing in the day. But when you're in a state of low mood, that's your worst nightmare. And what you need to do is you need to do loads of small things, or small things that increase in intensity, so then you can lead yourself up to doing a bigger thing with positive momentum. Schedule small things first if you have a big intimidating task. Run up to it. Don't tackle it head on. And the third tip to help you do something, when that's the last thing you want to do, be specific. This is from Atomic Habits, and this is the key to all habit change. When you want to set a habit, most of the time you don't lack motivation, you just lack specificity, which means you need to give yourself the utmost clarity on when you're going to do this thing and where. So, you're in a state of social withdrawal at the moment, let's imagine. Well, I need to go out and socialise. How are you going to understand that? What does that even mean? That isn't clear instructions to yourself. At 7 p.m. tonight, I will sit in my armchair, and call my nan. Oh, I need to work out more. Again, not specific enough. At 6 p.m, when I finish work, I will put my running shoes on and go for a run. Get specific. At 6 p.m. As soon as I close my laptop and finish work, I will put my running shoes on and go for a run. If you cannot say when and where you're going to do this behaviour, you're casting votes not in favour of you being able to do this thing. Anything else in this segment? No. 2 more points to help you get back on track when feeling low mood is, again, this could be a process you take over the next week or 2 weeks of gathering all of this information of the activities. And whenever you're in a state of evaluating what went well, what scores you got and how you ranked things, if you notice that there was something you scheduled in but eventually you didn't do it, sit in that impulse of wanting to criticize yourself and instead just ask this question. How could I make doing this thing easier? You are becoming an engineer to your life. Remember, you're steering the ship, but you're also taking care of the maintenance of this ship. If you schedule something that you wanted to do, but you actually don't end up doing it, how could you make this thing easier for you to do? Work with how your brain naturally operates, which is wanting to find the most cost-effective way to do something. Finally, point number 6 is be patient with yourself. One of the biggest obstacles you're going to face is the inner critic that you have, or that we all have, and the inner critic is going to want you to do things perfectly, and it's not going to settle for anything less than perfection. But I'm here to tell you, my honey bun, you're too good for perfection. So instead of striving for perfection, see everything that you're doing now as an experiment. As an experiment to help you steer the ship of your life. You might say, do you know what, for the next week, I'm just going to get back into the gym and see how it feels and go from there. Don't see things as an opportunity to set a super high expectation that they're going to snap you out of this low mood straight away. No, engineering curiosity mindset. Let's try this and see how it affects my mood. Just try this new habit and see if it provides any sense of relief and positive reinforcement. Screw perfection. Aim for experiments. Just see how it goes. Those are the 6 points. Hopefully that was simple enough. But before we end, I just want to give you 2 caveats quickly. And one caveat is you might be thinking, okay, Lewis, there's this activity that I used to do, which I'm not necessarily withdrawing from anymore. It's a case of I genuinely cannot do it. If you take the example of someone who used to play basketball all of the time. So they were with their friends, very happy, they had their team and everything. They would play basketball. Really shouldn't waste so much time trying to draw stuff like that, but it's kind of fun. Basketball, woo! They used to play basketball, but now they've got a shoulder injury, so they can't play. They're in a state of withdrawal socially because a lot of the needs that they used to get met by basketball aren't being met anymore. So how do you overcome this? Well, you develop a skill. So how do you overcome the reality of you physically or mentally cannot do an activity anymore? You develop a skill that psychologists call functional equivalence. Functional equivalence is whereby you reflect on the old behaviour or habit you used to do or activity, and you simply dig and introspect on the needs that you were getting met by this activity. And then you find another activity you can do right now that will meet these needs. If I give you 2 examples using the one that's already on the board. So Joshua used to play basketball, but he's injured his shoulder and he's going to be off for the next 6 months. So he does a little bit of introspection and he realises, do you know what? The reason why he loved basketball so much was because he was meeting the need of social connection. Yes, he loves the sport, but the main thing that made him come back was that group dynamic. Now he can't really use his shoulder in order to do most of the things he did in basketball, but he can still use the rest of his body physically. So what is a new way that he can meet this social connection need in a new activity? Well, he could go to a dance class, he could try a new sport that isn't as heavy on the shoulder. He could even go to something that stimulates him more mentally, such as poetry reading or whatever floats his boat. If you take another quick example of, let's say you do end a relationship and you now understand that all of the needs you were getting met in that relationship can no longer be met because you've broken up. Just do some introspection and think, okay, what was the main need I was getting met in that relationship? Social connection and someone to accompany you on the things that you would usually do. So now you can understand there's many different ways that you can meet that need in new activities. For example, you don't have to instantly re-enter a relationship or always long for that connection you had with your ex. No, you can have family accompany you on the things that you do, or you can do things together with your friends. Functional equivalence is meeting the need of the old activity with a new activity. One tip I would give you to help you, to encourage you to get into the mindset of finding the functional equivalence is take 10 minutes and just think about some activities you used to do that maybe when you're in a state of nostalgia you think, oh, life was so good when I used to do those things. Don't center your attention on the activity itself. Just search for the underlying need that was being met of yours when you did that activity. Write them down on a piece of paper and then ask yourself the question of how could I meet these needs with a new activity? Make sure you use the word could, because that encourages you to think much more creatively. And the last caveat to round this all off is there might be activities you cannot do without the support of someone else. For example, if you have a physical injury or if you have a disability, in that case, seek the help of a professional or seek the help of other people in your life to help you do that activity. Also, most people do overcome depression with the help of a therapist, so consider that if that is an avenue you want to explore. But just know that we're all in this together, this maintenance of our mental health. Remember that the main problem that we create with the withdrawal is we are negatively reinforcing ourselves to not engage with the world when it is hard and intimidating. All you need to do is understand that you need to reincorporate that positive reinforcement by giving yourself that tough love and that push to re-engage with these activities. And understand, the more exposure you give yourself to these activities, the higher your chances of getting all the benefits from those activities. So, all the best to you. If anything was unclear, leave a comment down below. You can join the newsletter as well. I send it out, it's completely free. I send it out every Thursday. For example, I sent the notes of this video out last Thursday in the newsletter. It will improve your social skills and your mental health. And it's a way for us to communicate as well, because I do respond to the emails. Thank you for your time and attention. Stay disciplined, playful and dangerous. Keep that positive momentum going. Come on. Okay? Just wanted to give some motivation. I didn't really have a message there, but take care of yourself. Adios, muchachos y muchachas.